Hey everybody, Dr. Sean here. Want to review a interesting finding that came out in a study that will allow you to reduce your risk significantly for having a heart attack and a stroke. It's being mediated through an interesting protein molecule that I've talked about before, and I want to bring it to your attention here. It is articulated pretty nicely in an article that I read off ScienceDaily.com, which is one of my favorite websites. I like to get it. They publish a lot of recent studies that come out that I think is helpful. And the articles are written in a way that you don't have to be a physician or a researcher to be able to grasp and understand what's going on. So for the average layperson, I like how it's written. It gives me the content, and then I can pull the individual studies to get into details more. So in this study, or in the video that I'm doing right now, I'm gonna try to keep it short, is I'm gonna talk about this particular study, what they found and how it's helpful to reverse disease, in this particular case, reducing the incidence of stroke. And I'm also going to share a particular bias that I see coming out more and more in studies. But stay tuned to the end of this video, because I'm going to go through some of my favorite ways to reduce disease that apply to this particular study. So this study talked about a resilient building activity that induces chaperone-mediated activity. So CMA, chaperone-mediated activity, that helps to reduce the incidence of stroke. And the way they did it was through some genetic manipulation, and they also talk about some drug compounds. But I'm going to tell you how to do the same thing through natural activity. It's going to cost you nothing. So stay tuned to listen to that. So if you follow me for a while, you know that I've talked about heat shock proteins, which are chaperone proteins. So chaperone-mediated autophagy is basically another form of chaperone activity that we've talked about in previous videos, or at least I've talked about in previous videos, that you can glean from the benefit of resilient building activity. So this particular study, if you want to pull it, is in this April 1st edition, 2022 of Science Daily, and the name of the article for you is "Researchers Find New Strategy for Preventing Clogged Arteries." Pretty eye-catching, certainly to somebody who's a health and performance optimizing physician working to reduce chronic disease. So researchers find new strategy for preventing clogged arteries. So in this particular case, as I mentioned, they use some genetic manipulation to upregulate the CMA, the chaperone-mediated autophagy. And autophagy is kind of the way cells are maintained. They clean up. You can think of it as cleaning up a cellular debris so that there's less disease around, less clogged tissue to cause problems. So you basically, the physiological response to chaperone-mediated autophagy and to resilience in general is it mediates repair mechanisms, and it helps to reduce cellular damage. So the healthier the cell, the healthier the tissue, the healthier the tissue, the healthier the organ, the healthier the organs, the healthier the organism. So that's how it works. If we can get our cells more healthy, we can get our cells more healthy. And chaperone proteins help to do that. So some significant take-home points is they looked at CMA activity, and they can look at it in the context of C. elegans, different organisms. C. elegans type of worm, but they looked at CMA activity in humans in an interesting study where chaperone-mediated autophagy activity could be observed post-operatively in patients that had previously had strokes and had carotid endarterectomy, CEA. So these are surgical procedures where they're cleaning out the carotid arteries. And they looked specifically at the incidence of stroke after these CEA procedures were done. And they looked at it in relationship to chaperone-mediated autophagy. So in the organisms that had the highest amount of CMA activity, there were no more strokes. Fantastic, right? If you've had a stroke, you don't want another stroke. You don't want to have a stroke to begin with, but definitely you don't want to have another one. But the people that had the lowest activities went on to have strokes. So you really don't want to have your chaperone mediated autophagy go down low. So you really want more of that occurring in your lifestyle. So how do you do that? So let's talk about that now. So chaperone proteins are basically a type of protein molecule that gets created from resilient hormetic activity. So that's activity that basically stresses your body. That which does not kill you makes you stronger. Okay, that's the take-home lesson. That which does not kill you makes you stronger. So chaperone proteins, a couple flavors, they come in heat shock proteins. So being exposed to heat, and cold shock proteins, being exposed to cold. So the equator, heat, North Pole, cold, hot sun, activity out in the hot sun, heat, activity in the cold, like particularly a real cold thing is going into cold water, that produces these chaperone proteins, these shock proteins. So a couple practices that I've talked about before, and I'm not going to go into them all, is a sauna. So you want to be using a sauna, not a infrared sauna. You want that higher heat. You want a dry finish sauna. I know infrared saunas are all over, but the best studies, the biggest studies have looked at dry finish saunas, and they create a higher temperature. And the other thing I'm concerned about infrared is it penetrates way too deep than the infrared rays that we're accustomed to from the sun. So when you're using an artificial, I am not into artificial stuff. I'm all about doing natural things. So infrared saunas are way too artificial for me. I'd rather be around like a volcano or, so like a natural hot bath, a spring that's hot. But, at least it's not so artificial as a dry finish sauna heats rocks. So significant reduction in the mortality of heart attacks and strokes when you get into a sauna. If you do it every day in excess of 50%, and overall mortality is reduced 45%. But if you only do it 1 or 2 days a week, that benefit drops considerably to only about 20%. So you really want to be doing it. It's dose dependent more frequently for the heat. And the same thing with cold. I see all over Instagram and the internet now, cold baths and cold immersions. I've been doing it for years. It's fantastic. Definitely a hormetic activity produces more chaperone proteins, so will help to create some more of the CMA activity as well, and very beneficial. So you want to get started on getting yourself to cold showers, cold immersion, building yourself up to that and doing it. It's also going to be on a dose dependent basis too. So more is better. So some other activities, resilient building activities, is things that are tough to do. So what's tough to do is fast. Fasting, you want to eat all the time, but as it turns out, when you fast, you do so many fantastic things. You repair your cellular damage when you're fasting. You improve your mitochondria. You improve your body. You allow your gut to recover and settle. So basically, it's cell maintenance and organism maintenance when you're fasting. So it does stress your body. It's kind of like a brief period of starvation. And I recommend you build yourself up slowly over a period of time where you do some extended fasting. So intermittent fasting is one way, kind of a narrow window, and then gradually increase that to extended fasting where you're fasting up to a whole day, up to eventually 36 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. And I'm just going to tell you, I fast every week now, at least 3 days out of a 7-day week. And probably half of the weeks in a month, I'm fasting 4 days because the benefit is so profound. So fasting is something that I recommend. And it's one of my favorite resilient building activities to to improve myself and to derive benefits. So I hope you give it a try. Another one is high intensity exercise. So high intensity is not jogging. You know from previous videos and content, if you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, I am not a fan of jogging and running. God bless you if you do, but I challenge you just to make the break from running. I'm a former distance runner. I made the break and I just do high intensity sprinting. So I really encourage you to do high intensity exercise because it mediates a much larger blast of resilient activity, resilience, benefiting activity in a short period of time than jogging ever will. So sprinting is a really fantastic thing to do. And let me just ask you this one question. For high intensity exercise, what exercise can you think of that makes you more short of breath, faster, in 10 seconds than sprinting? Nothing can. Nothing else that I can think of as a health and performance optimizing physician researcher that I'm aware of makes you more short of breath in a shorter period of time than sprinting. That is badass. You need to be doing sprinting. It's a great way of creating these heat shock proteins, these chaperone proteins, so that you can derive this benefit. It's very, very intense exercise in a short period of time. So I'll be doing another update video on sprinting in a little bit, so watch for that video. Today we're about chaperone mediated autophagy and chaperone proteins. Another interesting way of building resilience is through pathogen exposure. So when you get around pathogens, diseases, it stresses our body, not necessarily just from getting a disease, but being exposed to it. So just the mere exposure to pathogens will create some chaperone response, these shock proteins. So we don't want to live in a pristine environment where we're never exposed to any disease or any pathogens. We need to kind of have the exposure to those things, just like similar to being exposed to cold and being exposed to heat, to also make us stronger. So that which does not kill you makes you stronger. And another interesting study came across this, and I've always thought this, is exposure to sunlight. So just being exposed to sunshine is a stressful activity, and it helps to produce these shock proteins. Interesting, they found that that if you haven't been exposed to some of the these HSPs, these heat shock proteins 70, and you haven't had a chance to acquire these shock proteins, and you go out in the sun, that you don't have as much protection from the UV damage that can come from sunlight. So who gets skin cancers? Think about it. In my own mind, I haven't pulled any studies to take a look at this, but my guess is it's really pale people that have not done a lot of sprinting, have not done a lot of high intensity exercise, have not been in saunas, have not done cold showers, have not done fasting. Couch potatoes, eating ice cream, eating potato chips, those kind of people. Older people that have lived a relatively sedentary lifestyle. My guess is if you pulled studies, are going to have a higher incidence of skin cancer than those people out there getting it on and doing stressful activity, high brief stressful activity to improve their lives. So you really need to have that to protect yourself from the stressful environment that just being out in the sun is. So let me just explain a little bit about why does nature create this advantage, these benefits to the organism that goes out and exposes themselves to this kind of thing. Why does this happen? Why would it make sense? Because nature rewards the hard worker. Okay, so the organism that goes out and hunts when it's hotter, hunts when it's colder, goes out and works more in those kind of environments, nature is going to confer on them the advantage, the benefit of doing that, so that they can go out and do that some more. So over a period of time, those traits, those capabilities get passed on genetically to offspring to continue that on. So you really do want to be exposed to some stressful things purposely to become better, so you have that benefit, and to pass that on to your offspring. So it's really an important insight, and we've gotten away from it. Before, through selection pressure, which is this evolutionary trait, anthropological trait, whereby a species, Homo sapiens, derive benefit from the exposures of a challenging lifestyle. It was pretty tough 50,000 years ago. You didn't have houses and things. And it was just a really tough existence. And so we were all about trying to survive and doing the very best thing. We never would have done anything that would purposely hurt ourselves. And we would rather, enthusiastically sought out things that improved us. And what improves us are, go out and hunting at high intensity and things like that. Today, everybody gets to live, and so there's no direct benefit as readily apparent to people. Everybody gets to live through medicines to about 78 years of age, but not live well. So you get to survive better. In the past, you would survive better if you made better choices and you worked harder. But your quality of life was better because that meant you got to eat more, you got to, catch things more. Your lifestyle was better. Today, you might be able to live, but your quality of life sucks. If you got a bag of medicine, like all these patients would come into my ER when I was practicing full-time emergency medicine, bags of medicine, all these jars, just horrible. They'd be mouth hanging open, talking to me, or not even talking to me. And it's just a terrible lifestyle, my God. So everybody gets to live longer with these medicines, dragging them on, but their lifestyles are terrible. So the answer is really having the insight about stress hormesis, selection pressure, and living that way. Like so many other people on the internet are enlightened. They're doing the cold showers, they're doing the sauna, they're doing the high intensity exercise. They're getting it. I see Paul Saladino, Carnivore MD. Finally, dude is out there talking about sprinting and not doing running. I love that. So other people start to catch on, and Fast Over 40 talking about advantage of sprinting. Look how fantastic she looks and how well she performs. My God, her age out there sprinting. I hope I never have to get in a foot race with Fast Over 40. So anyway, some really great personalities are starting to educate everybody else and catch on board to these stress hormetic activities. So the last thing I want to share with you is that citation, so you can take a look at it. I'm just going to put it up here so you can see it if anybody wants to do a screenshot of that in ScienceDaily.com. And then the one other activity, and I'm going to just kind of whet your appetite for a future, are these BFR bands, okay? Blood flow restriction bands. They're hormetic activities. So blood flow restriction bands basically are bands that you wear around your body, your limbs when you start to work out, and you restrict the amount of blood going in, and not cut it off, not completely occlude it, but restrict it so you don't have as much blood going in, and your blood pools in your arms so you don't have that turnover, and it makes your workout harder. So these BFR bands are a form of hormesis that I want to talk about, and just set this up for another video that I'm going to be doing to tell you about the advantages and how you do them and get them, because they work. They'll make you stronger, they'll make you faster, they'll make you perform better in a shorter period of time. So basically it increases your return on your investment when you exercise. Okay, well that's it for now. I hope you, I forgot to make my important point. It's a critical point about in this study that bothers me so much. Okay, so I circled this, and I'm just gonna read this interesting quote, because this is I've seen this coming up more and more. Okay, see what you think about this. Okay, this is from the principal investigator of that particular study. He's looking at the chaperone mediated autophagy. All right, what do you think of this? Okay, my colleagues and I have developed drug compounds that have shown promise for safety and effectively increasing CMA activity in most mouse mouse tissues and human-derived cells, said Dr. I'm not going to quote her, I won't say it was, and Einstein, where the research was done at Albert Einstein, has filed intellectual property on this underlying technology. All right, so here comes my bias. I am really tired of all this science going to drugs. Okay, so the whole article was talking about drugs and was talking about the CMA activity and the genetic, not one mention of natural activity. No mention of these natural free activities, are in there to how to reduce disease. And so, yeah, these researchers are just as biased as the drug companies. They're out there making money, and the researchers are figuring out how to drive that technology and those compounds and intellectual property. You want to know who to follow? Look at those researchers. Those researchers looking at, I'm a researcher, but look at those researchers that are working in those labs and do those kind of things. You think they're out sprinting, doing a sauna? They are not going to look like ideal Homo sapiens. Their appearance will be poor, their performance will be poor, because they're chasing compounds. What's more important to them are developing profitable targets for them to go and sell to big pharma, okay? We need more researchers. If you're listening to this, we need more researchers that are out there developing natural strategies that are not going to cost any money. And we need to promote that. God bless the National Science Foundation. They funded me and my research partner, and we developed all natural interventions to reverse chronic disease. But we need more public funding of natural things so you don't have to take risky medications, and we can eliminate the profit motive out there. So anyway, making the pitch that we need more researchers to study natural things. And they need to start mentioning natural alternatives instead of always using drugs in these kind of studies. So I want you to pay attention to that when next time you read studies, when you start reading studies, and I hope you do, that you see how often it is that they go right to these drug compounds and how they don't like to mention natural sources. So as soon as I see a particular molecule that a drug company is targeting, I go jump on Google and I say natural sources for, and I look for that particular molecule, and I can find it in food or some other activity or some existence in nature, and that's going to be your better source for it. Okay, thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, give it a like. If you know somebody has had a stroke, pass this on to them so they understand what they have to do, or a heart attack, because the same mechanism that causes strokes cause heart attacks, and the same mechanism that causes heart attacks cause strokes. So if you've had a heart attack, you're at risk for having a stroke down the road. Getting rid of visceral fat is one of the best ways to reduce your risk for heart attacks and strokes. Following my content that is absolutely free, you can apply it. I love to talk about how to reverse chronic disease. So pass this on to other people that have chronic disease to help them. Pass this on to young people that don't have it so they can be educated how to keep from getting it. And if you really like this content, you can subscribe to me. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dr. Sean OMara, at DrSeanomara. All right, thanks very much. See you next time.